Hello, we're here at Granny's Legacy Patterns today, and we're going to be talking about pine boughs. And they are so fun to stitch. So we'll start right in about stitching a tiny little pine bough. So the first thing I do is put a little knot in the bottom of my thread, and I'm using pearl cotton, Valdani pearl cotton size 12. And so this particular color is 0576 green, and it's a great pine bough green. 0575. 0575. So I'm going to draw a tiny little pine bough because we have a set of note cards out right now that use little pine boughs. So I'm going to draw a tiny little pine bough there. On this one, we're going to talk about big pine boughs, so I'm going to draw a large pine bough right here. I think I'd like to have one right there. So this is a bow and iron off pen. It's really nice. If I don't like it, I can use a little warm iron and just disappear, or friction sometimes will take it off too. So the heat disappears it. So I'm going to draw it back on again because I really do want it on there. This is a tiny little pine bough. And we're going to wait 1 second for it to dry. And in the process, I'm going to just run my thread through Threadtastic. It conditions the thread, it keeps it from twisting and turning and knotting and such. So to do the stem on the pine bough, I'm just going to do a back stitch. And back stitch is the first one. If you've seen some of our back stitch videos, they always start going backwards first. So the first stitch is still backwards, and then you go past, and then you do another one. And the nice thing about the back stitch is you like it to show off, so don't try to pull it too tight. Okay, so this is such a tiny little pine bough. I'm going to stop there with 3 little back stitches. Okay, now's the fun time to start the pine bough. So what I do is I come up at the tip, and I want a couple little pine branches, a couple little needles up there. So the thing with pine boughs is none of the needles are exactly the same length. So the trick is to try to make them different lengths. Now I'm going to just go down, and I like to flip it and work upside down. So I go down, and my pine bough branches, pine needles kind of are on the diagonal. So I go up and down, a little snibble, and go back to where I started, and that makes a little bunch of pine needles. Some pine needles are 3 in a clump, some have 5 in a clump. White pines have 5 in a clump. So depending if you're doing a spruce branch or a Norway pine or whatever, your pine can be whatever you want. But it's kind of fun. Just step down next. Pine needles are whirled on the branch. That means that they go around the branch or straight across, depending on the variety. But as you can see, I'm not making them all the same length. Some are short, some are long. And then I'm going to go up the other side. And this is just a tiny little pine branch. So I kind of do get the angle just right. And then go up to the next one, stepping up. So this is a tiny little pine. And this, in our Granny's Legacy Pattern Seasons Greetings cards, this is the tiny little pine boughs we made for that. So there's a tiny little pine bough that's just kind of higgledy-piggledy. So I'm going to knot that off, and I'm going to go to another larger one now. So that's if you're making tiny little ones. We started with a back stitch just as our foundation to follow by. So as a bigger one, I like to start with either a brown thread or a darker thread or some other color thread for the branch. So here I've chosen 030 039 or 031, Katie, do you know?
That's 039.
039. Brown works well too. 0511 would work well. There's a brownie black one. And now I'm going to do a chain stitch just to make the branch. And this really gets covered, but it gives me a foundation. The brownie black one, what number is that?
I think it's 0501.
0501, okay. There's a lot of brownie blacks that are kind of fun to make your branch out of. So you can do whatever you like. It's mostly just for a foundation. So I'm stitching a chain stitch right on top of my drawn line. And this is a much longer, larger branch. And you could make branches off of the branch, so it's multifaceted, like this one here has the main, and then I had ones coming off of it. We're just going to do a single one to show today. Coming right here. So now I'm going to go on the back and knot the back. And you could knot in several different ways. Everybody has their own system on knotting on the back. I don't think that's important, as the backs usually get covered up. Now I'm gonna set that over there for rethread. And I like to start sometimes at the top and sometimes at the bottom. So I'm gonna start here at the top of the branch. And as you can see, I'm working upside down, and I'm going to work my way down the branch. So my first needle is sticking straight up, and then I go down, and then I just go to the bottom of that chain, and I work my way down, short, long, short, long. I try very deliberately to not make my needles all the same length. And that's what makes it more realistic looking. And not all the same width apart, kind of higgledy-piggledy, because in nature needles don't all lie flat like a satin stitch. They're just kind of in and out, in and out. But you can see how fun this is. It's just great fun to just work your way down the branch, higgledy-piggledy. And I just use that chain stitch as my guide for going down. I'm almost out of thread. Now you can go back and forth, and I'll show you that too. You could go like this. This is a nice way to do it too. Just go back and forth underneath big long stitches. And sometimes you have to just cross or go a little bit diagonally to make it come back where you want it to be. But you can just do long straight stitches too. That works just fine. I kind of tend to do the other way because I like to conserve thread, but you can do it however you like. See, you can see that by just doing long straight stitches too works just fine. The tendency is these all line up exactly the same. So I want to go back and put a couple in higgledy-piggledy because this does not look natural to me. It looks more natural if they're back and forth, back and forth. So I'm going to add some more in there. I'm going to flip this over and put a knot on the back of my work. And this is just a sample piece. It's not any one we have a pattern for it now, but coming this summer, later this summer, this is just what we call a R&D, research and development. So the real one will be different than this, but it's a good place for me to show you. So I'll show you once again, going down. The thread saver method, I think, tends to be more, so I'm going to cross over here because it'll look more natural if I have some that aren't exactly in the same slant. Just by adding a couple higgledy-piggledy ones, I call them. So they're just going different ways. It really looks much more natural. So this is the thread saver method, I call it, so that you're not going back and forth with long straight stitches. Your thread lasts a lot longer. Now I'm going to go back up the other side, so I'm going to turn it, and the same method. I'm going to slant up and come down. Poke myself, bleeding all over my work. So I'm just using the chain as my guide. And this is so fun. I love making pine branches. And you can make long needled pine, you can make short needled pine, whatever you like. Now once you get, and you can see the thread is doing all the work here, as the thread changes color. It really, this 0576, 0575 makes such lovely pine needles. And sometimes they lay on top of each other. That's all right too.
There's a lot of variegated greens that make beautiful pine needles. Like I think
Can you give me a
0526 is another good one that would make beautiful pine needles. And
0526?
yeah, I think even P2 would make some pretty.
P2.
Yeah.
So now I reached the top of my work, and I think that it looks just beautiful. But if you go back down now and just add a few more in where it's looking too straight, and I think this, and by changing the color in some of them too, it kind of, and sometimes it helps to add a few little short ones down in between too. So after you get the main done, just go back down and add a few long or short wherever you think they need them. And it just gives it a more three-dimensional look. And I think it's because the thread changes color. And so you have a couple needles that are in there that are in shadow or something because they have a different color thread. So I'll stop and let you see how that looks just by coming back and adding a few more in that little area. This side compared to this side. You can tell by adding a few more, just a couple.
It's really beautiful.
It really adds. So that is our tutorial on the pine branch, and I hope you enjoy and have fun embellishing your projects with some pine boughs. Thank you for joining us at Granny's Legacy Patterns.